Hello students, today I am going to discuss on the topic distinguishing features between man-made tool and naturally fragmented LS tools. There are certain degrees of differences between the man-made tools, what we frequently call artifacts, and the naturally fragmented LS tools. On the other hand, there are also some naturally fragmented rocks which possess certain similar characters like those of the man-made tools, with some specific purposes. Such similar characters sometimes make confusion which mislead the archaeologists while identifying and classifying the specimens. Hence, archaeologists sorted out the basic attributes which are possessed by each man-made or modified tool with a purpose and apply while identifying and classifying the tools. The present topic aims at discussing the points of difference between man-made and naturally made or fragmented LS tools. Man first conceptualizes the would-be shape, size, working edge and butt of the tool beforehand, and accordingly he selects the suitable raw material, then shows the flake technique to make it. Therefore, man-made tools have generally a regular pattern. Regularly patterned tools are therefore considered as the signs of culture. Stone is the most imperishable of all the materials which were used by our prehistoric men for the manufacturing of his tools. He made stone tools by percussion flaking technique, that is, striking a stone with another stone. There is evidence of gradual technological evolution in man-made tools. The resultant character of the blow may be understood first, that a sharp blow directed vertically at a point on the surface of the block of rock, say flint, knocks out a solid cone called conchoidal fracture. However, when the blow is directed obliquely near the edge of a slab, a flake is detached with half of the cone of the percussion. This half-formed cone of percussion at the point of impact on the flake is called the positive bulb of percussion, and corresponding hollowed flake skirts on the parent lump or core is called the negative bulb of percussion. There are also low concentric ripples around the bulb of percussion, corresponding to the force of the blow and the amount of the resistance of the block. This is according to L.S.B. Leakey. Because of the fact that the force from a blow does not travel in the direction of the blow, but at an angle to it and not in one straight line, but along a curve representing the ever-widening circles. He further stated that if the direction of the blow is at an angle to the surface of the flint, only a small part of the cone affects the flint, and the rest is absorbed outside the flint. Researches on the techniques of making stone tools by prehistoric men have now established various ways of flaking. These can be grouped under three categories. Number 1, direct percussion flaking, 2, indirect percussion flaking, and 3, pressure flaking. In the direct percussion flaking, the hammer strikes directly on the surface of the block of stone for detaching a desired flake. The flags detached by using different hammers will exhibit different characters. For example, the flag struck off the core by using large heavy hammerstone will exhibit very prominent bulb of percussion on the main flag surface, while light stone hammer produces flags with small and flatter bulb of percussion. At times, some of the massive flags are also used in making tools like cleavers and hand axes. These will be hard to believe in case of denature. The prehistoric man in making the stone tools also employs step flagging or bipolar technique. These two techniques are the evidence of preconceived ideas of men for making the stone tools. The naturally fragmented alloy tools do not exhibit such preconceived ideas. Flags produced by the Levallois or discoid core techniques will always have a regular pattern, and the Levallois flags could be used as tool without further modification. But nature cannot produce such flags with regular patterns. Another convincing character of man-made tool is the presence of alternate secondary flagging that nature cannot produce. The purpose of the alternate and secondary flagging is for the production of sharp working edge and blunt suitable hand holding or hafting place. It is one of the methods of obtaining a blade by the prehistoric man. In this case, the prepared cylindrical core is not struck directly by the hammer but through a punch. The pointed end of the punch is fixed on the striking platform of the core and then hammered on the other end of the punch. This resulted to the removal of a thin blade that exhibits numerous closely placed prominent ripples on the main flag surface. Pressure flagging is a highly specialized technique adopted by the prehistoric man in making tools like leaf-shaped point. This technique produces very thin flag skirts resembling the fish scales arranging in a regular systematic pattern. However, such regular set of meaningful fish scale-like skirts are not present on the naturally made alloy tools. Prehistoric men had also adopted the techniques of packing, sewing, grinding, and polishing in making Neolithic stone tools, and these techniques were applied purposefully. There is no evidence of such purposeful techniques in the naturally produced tools. Man-made tools are best represented by the types such as chopper, chopping tool, various types of hand axes and cleaver, pick, scraper, point, borer, blade, burins, microblades, denticulate, various types of shells, ringstones or mesh heads, and naturally made alloy tools are the eoliths. Even the oldest hand axes from the earliest Pleistocene deposits have standardized forms, whereas the eoliths, though used as tools by the immediate forerunners of man, lack such character. K.P. Oakley in 1965 stated, quote, "The possibility of discovering evidence of man in the Pliocene was being considered towards the end of the last century." And in 1891, Pacewitz published an account of some crudely shaped flints, looking like simple tools, which had been found in patches of the pre-glacial plateau drift on the north downs of Kent by an amateur archaeologist, Benjamin Harrison of Ictham. They became known as Aeolids, since it was suggested that they were the earliest recognizable implement and represented the dawn of tool making. However, detailed studies have shown that all the Kent and Sussex Aeolids can be made exactly by stones shipped by natural agencies. Thus, any among them which have been shipped by man would not be distinguishable from the probably far greater number which have been shaped through the accidents of nature." Unquote. We need to know the various agencies in nature that cause flaking of stone to distinguish these characters from those of the man-made tools. Flaking could also be done by natural agencies. Thermal scenes, termed as thermal fracture, is one of the chief accidental agencies by which stones are flaked. K.P. Oakley stated that rapid changes of temperature cause unequal expansion or contraction of the surface of the stone or rock relative to its interior. In deserts, for example, the exposed surfaces of some types of rocks are continually flaking as a result of the difference between the day and night temperature. In the cold region, flakes are commonly split off by frost, the outer layer of the stone expanding through the freezing of absorbed water. A flake or flake scar due to frost or other thermal fracture is easily recognized, for the surface of fracture has either a roughish blank appearance or shows ripple concentric about a central point. Unquote. Flakes with round in outline are produced by the frost action, and the residual frost-beaded lump of appropriate shape is easily mistaken as implement. Thermal changes are sometimes cause flint to break into prisms resembling blade cores, and stones splintered by fire or faceted by sandstones, or occasionally mistaken as blades. However, in closer examination, it could be noticed that such splinter blades break through the joint flange or the strange setup by slow internal shrinkage. When heavy stones carried by the waves of sea or heavy torrential water or the glacier strike against the fixed stone in the beach or gravel bed, will detach flake with flatter and more diffuse bulb of percussion. After some time, the flake stone is eroded and redeposited at another location, and again struck by another heavy stone in the same process as above, resulting to detaching of another flake either unidirectionally or bidirectionally to the previous flake scar. Such repeated course of action may produce the stone resembling the shape of an implement. Since the flakings are not done simultaneously, the flake scars exhibit different rate of weathering or patination and also do not show purposeful. Another evidence of man-made tool is the presence of purposeful secondary flakings. But thin pieces of stone can be sieved through friction against another stone, as occurs in soil creep, that is solifluction, in torrent action or in glacier. Such naturally sieved flags lack logical design and flag scars occur in uneconomical profusion. The edges have brush appearance and the flag surfaces are usually scratched. In short, there are many differences between the man-made and naturally fragmented or made LS tools. Of them, 6 points of differences are discussed here. That in the case of man-made tools, the cone of percussion is prominent. In contrast to it, the naturally made LS tools, the cone of percussion is either flattened or almost absent. Similarly, in the man-made tool, the flaking ripples are concentrating to the point of impact, whereas in the naturally flake or made LS tools, the flaking ripples are concentrating about a central point. Regarding the primary and secondary flakings, these are purposefully present in case of man-made tools, but irregular and uneconomical in those naturally made LS tools. In addition to these characters, alternate flaking is present in the case of man-made tools, but absent in the case of naturally made LS tools. Moreover, the patination of the flaking scars are uniform in the case of man-made tools, but different patinations are found in the naturally made LS tools. Above all, there is a regular shade pattern in the case of man-made tools, but it is irregular in the naturally made LS tools. Thus, we may summarize the differences between the man-made tools and the naturally made LS tools in a tabular form as below. Character: man-made tools, naturally made LS tools. Number 1. In cone of percussion, it is prominent in the man-made tools. It is flattened or almost absent in the naturally made LS tools. Number 2. Flaking ripples. It is concentrating to the point of impact in the man-made tools and concentrating about a central point in the naturally made LS tools. Number 3. Primary and secondary flakings. It is done purposefully and it is irregular and uneconomical in case naturally made LS tools. Number 4. Alternate flaking is present in the man-made tools and not present in the naturally made LS tools. Number 5. Patination of the flaking scars. It is uniform patination in case of man-made tools, whereas it is different patinations in case of naturally made LS tools. And lastly, number 6. Regular pattern. It is regular in case of man-made tools and irregular in case of the naturally made LS tools. There are marked differences between the man-made tool and the naturally fragmented tools. In case of the man-made tools, they always possess a regular pattern. Alternate flakings are also present to produce the sharp working end. Pressure flaking is highly specialized technique which produces very thin flake scars resembling the fish scales arranging in a regular systematic pattern. Above all, in some of the man-made tools, the purposeful application of packing, grinding and polishing are seen. All these evidences are not present in the case of naturally fragmented LH tools.